evening, dear friends. It is indeed a great honor and privilege to be part of this important conference, LISACON 2020, organized by Allies Academy, Bangalore. And this is a very interesting conference, the conference with a difference in many ways. If you look at the theme of this conference is reinventing excellence in the libraries, which is really in need of our to discuss. Before starting my presentation, I would like to thank the organizer of this conference, especially Dr. P.V. Kunnur, the president at Allies Academy, Bangalore, Dr. G. Mahesh, the scientist, NISCARE, Delhi, and special thanks to our conference director, Professor Sri Kumar, and Dr. Jagdish Arora, the plenary speaker of this session, for their kind opportunities and invitation for sharing my views on this important conference. The topic of my talk is today is managing research data using fixed-share data repository. My dear friends, I'll be highlighting and discussing various important aspects of research data management, starting with the understanding with the research data, type of the research data, why should we manage the research data, what is exactly is the research data management, how to manage the research data, who are the stakeholders involved in managing the research data, and what should be included while you're going to plan the research data management in your respective institution. And finally, I will be discussing the silent feature of the fixed-share data repository. I'm sure after this session, the scholars and scientists will be able to understand the importance of the research data and also will be able to initiate managing the research data by using open research data repository like fixed-share. Let us understand the research data. Research data is a data which is available, which is curated, generated, created during the research process. While a scholar or scientist going to start the research, they used to create different kind of research data. The research data is also helping the research community in validating of the research, or the research data can help the scholar to validate the research. Without having full proof of the research data, it is difficult to conclude the research. So let us understand the research data with some formal definitions given by University of Leicester and University of Sheffield. University of Leicester has defined the research data as the recorded factual material commonly accepted in scientific community as necessary to validate research findings. The same way, the University of Sheffield is also defined the research data, the data needed to validate the results presented in scientific publications, or the evidence used to inform or support research conclusion. Now we can see the importance of the research data. Without having a full proof of the data or quality of research data, no one can conclude the research findings. Now I would like to discuss about the research type of the research data. Different kind of data has been collected by the scholars, and this data is organized, stored in different files and formats, and a lot of numerical data used to generate during the lab experiment or collecting the data from various fields or conducting interviews. So these kind of data we are used to manage through spreadsheets or data sets, databases, and all these data can be considered as research data. So computer programmer is used to design a program, used to design a software, and the software designed in the computer program can also be in a research data, and the set of the small software which can also be part of the research data. Different kind of data is available in the research laboratories, chemical compounds, samples, and all. These are also the research data. Images, audios, videos collected during the research process is also part of the research data. Even the notebook used during the research and recording the factual materials, different kind of facts and figures in the notebook during the lab experiment and all can also consider the research data. So these are the different kind of data, and there can be more that kind of research data. Ultimately, we have to see what kind of data which can help a scholar in finding the research conclusions. Now we'll be discussing why should we manage the research data. Research, everyone knows the research is involved in a lot of efforts, times, energy, funding, and more. So it is a very important, while the research scholar or scientist going to start the research, they have to keep in mind the kind of data what they are going to generate, and they should know that which data is more important, which data have to store and place the data in a secure environment. So most important thing is that we should avoid the losing the data, because so much things are involved in the research process. We should think about the timings and efforts of the research, and they should not be duplicate. In case we are collecting and generating different kind of data, we are able to manage the data. The data can be stored in any open data repository, which can be utilized by other scholars to accelerate the research process. Research data is also helping transparency of the research, and also helping in the reproducibility of the research. Nowadays, if you look at the research proposal, research funding agency, they're asking the research data management plan along with the research proposal. So that's why this is very important aspect for the scientist community, scholar community, to understand the research data management process and plan. And finally, the research data, if you are able to manage the research data through open repositories, this will also increase the visibility and given a kind of impact of the research on the society, because in case because of your data is available in public domain, any other scholar can make use of the data, can reuse of the data, and data can be cited in a similar way, the way scholar community used to cite research publication. And there is some incident happened, whenever the scholar is supposed to complete the research, sometimes they suddenly got and crash, they crash their laptops, sometimes they lost their laptops, and they're unable to restore and recollect the data. Therefore, this is very important for scholar that they should plan the research data quite well in advance, so that they can avoid all kind of unnecessary problems. Let us understand the research data management. Research data management is nothing but a kind of term which describes the organizing, storing, preserving, and sharing the data for reuse. And there is a research data management life cycle, starting with the planning. That means we have to plan and frame an RDM policy, institution level, organization level, or the country level, where there should be have to have some kind of policies and planning for the research data management. Ethics and integrity also should be maintained while you plan the research data, and planning the documentation and checklist. We have to plan quite in well advance what kind of data we are going to collect, how we are going to collect, who is going to make a documentation of the data, and then finally that data should be checked cross before submission on a data repository. Next step is that collecting, creating data. That means what kind of data has to be collected, how much data has to be collected, how we are going to create a metadata, documentation of data, so that we can, while we are planning to upload the data in any of data repository, we can understand, and especially the file names of the data and file formats. These are the important aspects when we are going to create a data and we are going to collect data. This is important to understand. Next step is that storing the data. When we are talking about storing the data, that means we have to keep in mind the physical and virtual data storage security. We have to understand the kind of data backup plan, data storage devices, whether it's an internal data storage, external, or the cloud storage. So we have to keep in our mind when we are planning the research data management. Next step is the sharing the data. When we are going to share the data, we have to keep in our mind basically there's ethically and legally. That means who is having a copyright of the data, who is an ownership of the data, how data will be stored, how long that will be stored, and how the data will be available on public domain with the open license for reuse and also for citing. So this is the research data management life cycle we should understand before initiating any of research data management plan in the respective institution. There is an again gofair.org. Is an website where we can see the RDM policy. We support FAIR principle. FAIR means what? FAIR means FAIR. FAIR. FAIR is means findable, accessible, interoperable, and reuse. That means whatever data we are going to store on any of repository, any of system, data should have to have a unique identifier, digital object identifier (DOI), and there should be properly metadata of that the data, so that the data can be retrieved very easily by any of scholar. Secondly is then accessibility. Accessibility means whatever data we are going to store, the data should be in a public domain, so that anyone can make use of the data without any hesitation and along with the open license. So accessibility of the data will make an impact of the research globally. Next is the interoperability. That means the data should be can be communicated from one machine to another machine, can be able to import, export, can be communicated from one machine to another machine, and that should be very important. The data should be interoperable. And finally, that reusable of the data. That means data should be have a very clear cut described along with outline and the importance of the data, especially when that data, someone is going to search your data, going to use your data, can understand the importance of the data. So data should be reusable, so other scholar can easily can understand about the nature of the data, importance of the data, and so that other scholar can make any use of your data for their research. There are some stakeholders when we are going to plan a research data management. There are some stakeholder which need to involve in planning the research data management. First and foremost is the institutional authority. When any organization is going to plan research data management, they will have to plan their research policy, framing the policy. That should be clear-cut policy, which should be introduced in the organization. Thereafter, another stakeholder is that principal investigator, research supervisor, the research scholar, because they are the people who's directly involved that in terms of the research, creating the data, generating a data, and they know better than others the importance of their data. They are able to understand which data has an importance and value which should be stored for long-term preservation and access. So therefore, they're the best people who are to involve in process, and they are the people who has to document the research data, metadata, so that person can understand easily and can upload their data in their any of repository. Next is that research administrator, the dean research office, where the research office or the research administrator will have to ensure that whatever data management policies framed by the organization has a proper implementation. So this is one of the important stakeholder. And finally, library. Library can play a very important role in framing the research data management policy in the respective institution, and also can create the awareness program on the RDM, can plan some training, the workshop where the scholar community can know about this whole process. And also library people can also help scholar community in uploading the research data, and can help them in creating metadata. So this is the role of the library. And finally, this library people can also help the research community to measure the impact of the research repository. So in that way, these are the stakeholder, and where they should know completely the whole process of the research data management plan. This is the 6 steps where when we are planning the research data management in the respective institution, we have to keep in mind these 6 steps. First one is the data collection of data and study material. That means what kind of data we are going to collect, how much data to be collected, and how we are going to what kind of size of data should be there, which method we are going to use in collecting the data, or anonymization. That means in case of any personal information is attached with the data, that should be cleaned properly. Second stage is that storing. storage, security, and backup. Where we are going to store the data, how to protect the data in network environment, how and when to take the backup, internal, external, or in the cloud, how to protect the data physically or the virtually. These are the some steps which we have to keep in mind when we are going to plan this data. Third step is the archiving, preservation, and citation curation. That means how to create, archiving the data, including metadata standard. We have to keep in mind so that other people can retrieve the data easily. What type of the infrastructure will be required for preservation of the data? What type of the data must be kept in mind, and how long data should be preserved? This is one of the important, and which format we are going to preserve all the data. This is the important. And discovery, access, and sharing. This is fourth point, which is again important. Whatever data we are going to upload, that should be discoverable. People can retrieve the data very easily. Repository should have to have a kind of feature to generate DOI, digital object identifier, for each and every piece of the data, so the data can be retrieved very easily. Next is the metadata. That means, will people able to understand the metadata? Enough information is provided to retrieve the data, or enough to replicate the exactly of the data. So these are the some issues. And last point is that rights and responsibility. That means, who is going to what? Who is going to create a data? Who is going to collect the data? Which method they're going to use in collecting the data? And which data has to preserve for the long term? And who is going to documenting the data? And who is going to upload the data? These are the some of uh, responsibilities, and there are some of legal issues. Which license will be applicable on the research data? So these are the important steps when we are going to plan any of data research data management plan. We have to keep in mind. There are some DMP, data management plan, is also known as DMP, and there is a tool available where the scholar community can make use of this tool. And these are nothing but kind of template where this will help the scholar to plan their research data management before submission of any of research project for fundings. There is a type of the data repository is available. There is a repository which is created by funding agencies. There is an institution level repositories created by a particular institution. There are some general repository, open data repository. Anyone can make use of the data, then this repository for uploading of the research data. And there are some subject specific repositories available. And some of country, they have also started the national level research data repository. So again, depend on the scholar community or the scientist with what kind of data repository they are going to select for preserving their data. This is the again finally again we have to plan and we have to decide what we are going to do, whether we are going to use the open data repository or we are going to create our own institutional data repository, or we have to design our own. So these are few open data repositories are available, and there are many more. As I said, that there is subject specific repository, there's an open data repository, general repository, and this fixes digital repository. Dataverse is in Harvard University. They started open science framework is again another open repository. So again, people will have to decide which data repository they are going to use. So now I'm going to talk about Fixair. Fixair is in a general open data repository having a large number of data. You can see the statistics is available. 26 million pages are available. Million of data is available. 7.5 million data has already been downloaded. 8 lakh users are already been uploaded their data, and 2 million articles are available. 5 lakhs collection is there. 5,000 project has been uploaded in this repository, and more important thing is that more than 5,000 citation has been created from that Fixairs. So let us see. Fixairs is as easy as we are using different kind of social networks. Just we'll have to sign up and put in your own information, and this information just we have to uh, accept the term and condition of this repository and sign up. And this repository was initiated in 2011 at Imperial College London, and now owner of this repository is a data science. So all the information is available on public domain, and I don't know about the availability of time, but still let me show the how you can you utilize fixed data repository for preserving their own data. Once you are going to log in, you'll this dashboard will appear. This is the workflow of the fixed repository: upload, manage, share, and publish. When we are going to sign in this repository, this dashboard will appear: by data, projects, and collections and activity. These are the menu of this repository, and you can see here the drag file to upload. Just put on any folder in your computer and drag that particular folders or files in here, and just can create the metadata of your data. You can see the data, the title here, and once you are going to upload the document, that means they will consider yourself as an automatically an author. In case you are uploading your research data on behalf of your faculty member, you just can add the data scholar by putting their email ID details and especially your ORCID ID. Categories means that there is a subject classification is there, as a, then you can use your the area of your data. Like in a library science, I give an example. Item type, that means what kind of data is there. Then you have to create keywords for your data and along with the description. What exactly is the data and who can use this data? What is the importance of the data? These are the fields which has to fill, and then after put in keyword descriptions. And good thing is that you can mention the funding agencies also. In case your project research is funded by someone, your university or external funding agency, you can put their names, or you can give a reference of their websites here. And good thing is that you can see here licensing. That means license is applicable on your research data. You can see the CC by 0, CC by 4.0 is in a license which is allowing others to make use of your data. They can share their data, they can cite their data in the research. So next feature is that you can apply the embargo. In case your research is still going on, or you would like to upload the data, you can embargo your data. Say after 3 months your research will be completed. So meanwhile your data will be in confidential manner, and you can just put an embargo for 3 months, and after 3 months after completing your research, that data will be in a public domain. Thereafter, there is another feature. You can make your data as confidential, you can make it public, or you can generate a private URL, so that URL can be shared with other scholar where they can refer your work. And you can reserve the DOI of your for this data and then submit. When you are going to submit, you can see that there is a different buttons in the bottom: cancel, DOI, upload, and you can see the publish. Just click in this box here, publish, and your data will be available in public domain, and you can see the green button. That means your data has been successfully uploaded and available in public domain for reuse. So this is the one feature. Another feature is the projects. Projects means some group of people working together and doing some project, and every person has having their different kind of research data, different kind of input. So they can upload individually their different data, and other people can see, can refer, can view only, or they cannot delete but can view, can upload, and can download the data. Collections means there is a huge collections is available on fixed shares. You just can search that the area which you are going to do research. There is a lot of available raw data is available on this your area, research areas, and that research area can be stored in your collection, and that data can you utilize by the scholar for further. And activity, that means when you are going to work in a different groups, your activity will be monitored, and thereafter you can see all activity together. Here I would like to show you some more things. Yes, this is another feature. It is not necessary to you just put in all full text your research data. You can just submit your metadata of your research. That feature is also there. And this is how to create projects. Just put in all the metadata about your projects. You can see here. And this is the collection where you can select the raw data of research created by different scholars, and that same data can be utilized by you. And here you can see the different feature. Lot of features are available, like all metrics. You can see here your data can be monitored. Your all metrics are there. You can see how many times has your data has been viewed, how many times has downloaded, and is in case is there in citation, you can see there is a feature the you can cite your data. So there are a number of data repositories already been initiated globally, and this is in a portal readdata.org, and this is the registry of research data repository. And India is also started developing the different kind of data repository, and more than 51 data repositories are reflecting here. And this is the data globally, different country wise, the research data repositories. And thank you very much for listening, and I'm available for any kind of questions, and or you can write me on my email. I'll happy to reply. Thank you very much.